TTT Live, I'm DK Rockstar. The new Roxborough Hospital will be officially opened today. This opening ceremony is taking place on site at Bloody Beret Road, Roxborough. And we're bringing you live coverage on TTT, Talk City 91.1 FM, Sweet 100.1 FM, Next 99.1 FM, and on Facebook at TTT Live Online. We take you now to the Tobago for the opening of the Roxborough Hospital. As we see the Prime Minister coming in, remember, this is something that is signed, sealed, and delivered by UDCOT. We'll also be looking today for the MP for Tobago East, Ayanna Webster Roy, Councillor Tracy Davidson Celestin, Secretary Health, Wellness and Family Development, as well as the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Ansel Dennis. They will all be in attendance. But at this point in time, we are awaiting the arrival of the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley. So there we see him in Tobago for the opening of this auspicious August institution. See some physical distancing taking place as the Prime Minister makes his way to his seating arrangement.
Standing for the national anthem, played by Savion Murray of the Roxborough Police Youth Club. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Kindly remain standing as I invite Pastor Michael Jerry to do the opening prayer.
We bow together in prayer. We give you thanks, Almighty God, for allowing us this privilege and honor to come into your house. We have come, O God, because you have been gracious unto us. May the things that we now do and say at this function bring unto you more glory and honor. Guide us, O Lord, by your wisdom, counsel, might, and power. At the end, we shall all give you thanks and praise, for you have shown us, Lord, your wisdom, kindness, and mercies. All things are now blessed through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Jerry. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have your seats. Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Ansel Dennis, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Tobago East, Mr. Joel Jack, Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance and the Economy, Tobago House of Assembly, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestin, Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Secretaries and Assistant Secretaries of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Karoma, Chief Administrator, Tobago House of Assembly, Mrs. Ingrid Melville, Chairman, Tobago Regional Health Authority, Executives and Management of the Tobago Regional Health Authority, Mr. Noel Garcia, Chairman of the Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, UDICOT, Executives and Management of UDICOT, Mr. Wing Fei Zhang, Chief Engineer and Deputy General Manager, and Wang Jiang Zhang, Deputy General Manager of China Railway Construction Caribbean Company Limited, President of the Roxborough Village Council. Specially invited guests, members of the media, members of the national public viewing and listening on Tobago Channel 5, Radio Tambrin, TTT, I-95.5 and UDICOT's Facebook page, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the official opening of the state-of-the-art Roxborough Hospital. I am Afia Giles Baines, and it is truly a pleasure to be with you this afternoon to conduct the duties of Master of Ceremonies. I am very excited to be here as it is a day that we can all be proud. Over the last year, Roxborough has seen rapid growth, from the Roxborough Police Station to the Roxborough Fire Station and now the Roxborough Hospital. To share more on Roxborough's expansion and development, please welcome Member of Parliament for Tobago East, the Honourable Ayana Webster Roy, to give opening remarks.
Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Ansel Dennis, Chief Secretary, Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Joel Jack, Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary for Finance and the Economy, Tobago House of Assembly, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine, Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Secretaries of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Karoma, Chief Administrator, Tobago House of Assembly, Mrs. Ingrid Melville, Chairman, Tobago Regional Health Authority, Executives and Management of the Tobago Regional Health Authority, Mr. Noel Garcia, Chairman of the Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, Executives and Management of UDICOT, Mr. Yufai Zhang, Chief Engineer and Deputy General Manager, Mr. Wai Zhai Zhang, Deputy General Manager of China Railway Construction Company Limited, President of the Roxborough Village Council, specially invited guests, members of the media, members of the national public viewing and listening live on Tobago Channel 5, Radio Tambrin, TTT, I-95 and UDICOT's Facebook page. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my esteemed pleasure to address you on such a momentous occasion. On Wednesday, 17 July 2019, I stood on this site under a tent, and as Member of Parliament for Tobago East, I welcome those gathered to the sod turning ceremony for the start of the construction of the Roxborough Hospital. In less than 18 months, we are back here to mark the handover of the newly constructed Roxborough Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, this achievement deserves a round of applause. As I said back then, this facility heralds the beginning of a new era for the community of Roxborough and the people of Tobago East. Today's children and generations to come will experience living in a Tobago East that is on par with the rest of the island and the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, access to comprehensive quality health care is vital for promoting and maintaining health, preventing and managing disease and reducing unnecessary disability. The journey from Hermitage and many of our more rural villages to the Scarborough General Hospital in cases of emergency is a grueling one for both patient and family, a fact that I can attest to based on my own personal experience. Ladies and gentlemen, timely access to emergency health care can be the difference between sustained health or prolonged sickness, or the thin line between life and death. I am hopeful that with a hospital in Roxborough, life would be a bit easier for all of us on this end. Furthermore, the establishment of the Roxborough Hospital and the comprehensive range of health services that will be on offer will take some of the strain from the Scarborough Hospital, thereby leading to greater efficiency and improved delivery of health care services in Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of investment pumped into the development of Tobago East over the last 4 years by both central government and the Tobago House of Assembly was not by guess or in response to any political threat. The cabinet led by Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley and the Executive Council of the PNM-led Tobago House of Assembly in building Tobago together saw the need as well as the potential for the development in Tobago East. And ladies and gentlemen, a strategic, deliberate, and sustained plan to improve the social and physical infrastructure of the constituency was put into action. Those of us who reside in Tobago East and those who traverse our constituency for either work or play can attest to the changes and the recent development. Those of us who live in Tobago East can attest to the fact that our administrative building makes it easier for us to access social services and information on the myriad of grants available through the state. We can attest to the fact that improved roads and drainage systems ensure safer commute for all and help us to protect our environment. And now, our hospital will ensure timely access to quality health care. That is worth celebrating. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have much to be thankful for and cause to celebrate. But as we celebrate, I want to caution us all, especially those of us who are Tobago East people and Roxborough people. Let us not squander the investments made in our constituency. As I said back in 2019, the true potential of the investment in our constituency can only be realized if we, the people of Tobago East, position ourselves to continue the process. Are we nurturing the next generation of surgeons, oncologists, radiographers, and other specialists to take over the reins when those who will staff the hospital now reach retirement age? Have we prepared our sons and daughters to assume responsibility for a police station and fire station when the current batch of officers age out of the system? Are we encouraging our children to explore opportunities in agriculture? What are we doing to ensure that the agricultural access roads constructed throughout the constituency and the farmlands remain active even after today's farmers decide to take a rest? My dear constituents, let us make use of the opportunities provided to us by the government and the Tobago House of Assembly by preparing our children to harness the full potential of all that is available to us in our constituency, on our island, and in our nation. On this journey of development, how we prepare today will significantly affect our ability to navigate the course ahead. The true transformation of Tobago and Tobago East and the true development is not dependent on the number of buildings erected or the roads paved, but on the people of Tobago East. The true transformation and development of Tobago East requires a transformation of the way we think, the way we view ourselves, and the way we view our constituency. It requires a change in mindset. It requires an attitude shift, and it demands, as I said in 2019, an end to the blame game. Let us develop an attitude of gratitude. While we cannot rewrite history, while we cannot change the past, we can use all we have now, harness our potential, and change the way the rest of the story is written. Under the combined leadership and respectful collaboration of a working central government and a working Tobago House of Assembly, a foundation was laid and a new chapter written. The ball is in our court. We Tobago East people, we are the change agents. We hold the key. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your presence at this very auspicious occasion. I thank all who played a role in bringing this vision to reality, and I thank God for his many blessings bestowed on the people of Tobago East and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Though we face uncertain times, I remain comforted by the fact that we have proven time and time again to be a resilient people. We emerge better and stronger no matter what we face together. To all, I wish you a happy new year. May God continue to bless you, and may God continue to bless Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Webster Roy. Ladies and gentlemen, in an effort to observe COVID-19 public health protocols and to have the mic that is stationed at the lectern properly sanitized, I will be addressing you from here throughout the program. Ladies and gentlemen, the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development has a mandate to drive state-of-the-art health infrastructure in Tobago. And today, the division has surely lived up to that mandate. To share more on Tobago's health portfolio, I ask that you join me in welcoming Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestin, Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development.
Thank you very much, Mistress of today's proceedings. Permit me to recognize in our midst Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Ansel Dennis, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister and also Member of Parliament for Tobago East, Mr. Joel Jack, Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary for Finance and the Economy of the Tobago House of Assembly, Secretaries of the Tobago House of Assembly, permit me to recognize as well Assistant Secretary Nadine Stewart Phillips, who has been working with me in the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Karoma, Chief Administrator, Tobago House of Assembly, and I must recognize as well my administrator, Ms. Cheryl Ann Solomon in the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Mrs. Ingrid Melville, Chairman, Tobago Regional Health Authority, executives and management of the Tobago Regional Health Authority, and this is a mouthful, Mr. Noel Garcia, Chairman of the Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, executives and management of UDICOT, Mr. Zhang, Chief Engineer and Deputy General Manager, and Wan Ji Zhang, Deputy General Manager of China Railway Construction Caribbean Company Limited, President of the Roxborough Village Council, specially invited guests, members of the media, as well as all those who are viewing on the national public viewing and listening audiences, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant afternoon to each and every one of you. I must say that I'm very pleased to stand here to be a part of this exercise, which can easily be considered as history in the making. And I want to use this opportunity to indicate to all of you that as a person growing up in deep Tobago East, I can clearly recall our numerous struggles, and to many of us, they were too hard to bear. And then came despair, because we felt as though we were neglected as a people, and we cried out for hope and attention. But today I can say without fear of contradiction that we are now a proud people, having this kind of representation over the last 10 years or so. Representation that has been focused on ensuring that we as a people can lead meaningful lives, and that the level of physical and human resource development is on par with that of the rest of the island and even the country. And through strategic collaboration between central government and, of course, the Tobago House of Assembly, Roxborough is now entrenching itself as the second tongue in Tobago. And I can boldly say that we are proud of the strides that we can now make as a people. As the Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development, this hospital represents a significant milestone for all of us. And I am confident that access to health and well-being related services will radically be improved. Although there was a medical facility here when I was growing up as a child, it provided very basic health services generally and specifically to expecting mothers. But look how far we have come. We will all benefit from an integrated state-of-the-art health center and hospital equipped with hyperbaric chamber facilities, which has been making its mark in terms of rehabilitative care. And I am advised that this facility is the only one of its kind in Trinidad and Tobago and perhaps the region, because we now have 3 components of care in this very one location. This facility will be opened on a phased basis, first starting with the operationalization of the hyperbaric chamber. And I'm advised by the medical chief of staff that this morning they would have received their first patient. And then the health center, and more later the hospital. But when fully commissioned, we will provide the following clinical services at the primary level: chronic diseases, including diabetes and hypertension clinics, antenatal, postal, and contraceptive services and pap smears, child care services, including vaccines and wellness clinics, and there will also be screening for cancers and HIVs, home visits, outreach services, school health, and dental care services. And this is at the primary level. And at the secondary level, 24-hour accident and emergency services, specialist clinics, including obstetrics and gynecology, general surgery, pediatrics, internal medicine, mental health, renal medicine, dermatology, rheumatology, cardiology. There will be a maternity unit for antenatal and postnatal care and deliveries, including the performance of cesarean sections. A pediatric unit will also be at this facility for the care of newborns. There will also be an operating theater for the performance of elective surgeries, and of course an ICU and a dialysis unit. And the above services will be supported by laboratory services, including blood banking, medical imaging, general X-ray, ultrasound scanning, CT scanning, biomedical engineering, and of course pharmacy service, 365 days, and of course 24 hours per day. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have shown our commitment to the health and well-being of all our residents. We now have 3 enhanced health centers. We have 15 other health centers. The new Moriah Health Center to be opened later this month. 2 state-of-the-art hospitals. We have established an infection control center. We have 2 well-equipped ICU, dedicated spaces for men and women's health issues, and we are integrating health and social care planning and provision on the island. And we will forever make the point, wherever we are, that we can safely say that as it pertains to the per capita ratio where health-related facilities are concerned, we have been out front in the region, and that deserves a hearty round of applause. And so because of these healthcare developments, male and female expectancy have been on the increase, and it has been increasing steadily over the last 20 years. And based on the research in 2020, men now have a life expectancy of 71 years, growing at an average annual rate of 0.24%, and in 2020, women have a life expectancy of 77 years, peaking at a growth rate of 0.49% in 2003. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in fact making strides. Very recently, we have started training nursing assistants right here in Tobago. Before that, they would have had to travel to Trinidad. And we have now been focused on ensuring that the Scarborough General Hospital has the standard of operating procedures that will give its clients the assurance that it will give the clients the assurance of quality care. And so the operations at this facility, I must say, will be no different. And I have already said to the team that this must be one of the best facilities in Trinidad and Tobago. The board of the Tobago Regional Health Authority has also been given the mandate to ensure that we have a robust performance management system and a robust monitoring and evaluation framework, which will be down to the benefit of all of us. And so the intent is to ensure that we manage our facilities, our staff, and our system in a very effective manner. The opening of this new facility will be of great benefit to the local community, both in terms of the services that it provides and also with regards to the employment opportunities that will be created, and the portion of which will come from these areas. This brand new facility with cutting-edge technology and advanced clinical and research practice will also assist the hospital in attracting some of the brightest and best to come and work as what is intended to be a world teaching class facility. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to indicate that this is the beginning of a new era for all of us, a beginning of a new era for health service delivery in Tobago. Here there will be cutting-edge digital technology with the coming into being of the newly acquired 128 slice CT machine, which I am told is one of the most modern CT machines in the world, or the country rather, capable of complex diagnostic capabilities for cardiac arrest. And so before I take my seat, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pay tribute to the Prime Minister and his diligent staff at UDCOT, staff and management at the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, the Tobago Regional Health Authority, the project managers, the contractors and the subcontractors, Dr. Agatha Carrington, and all stakeholders who would have made the opening of this facility possible. The people of Deep East, and so the people of Deep East, I also wish to thank you for your patience. We stand on the shoulders of your vision and tenacity, and I am humbled at the opportunity to effect changes through policy development. And so I say thanks to all of you for your efforts and for your dedication throughout this construction period, and I hope that you will all enjoy and benefit from working and accessing the new facilities right here. I thank you, and God richest blessings to each and every one of you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Davidson Celestine. As you can see, we are keeping abreast with observing the public health protocols. So bear with us as each speaker leaves the lectern. We will sanitize. Ladies and gentlemen, Tobago has an infrastructural plan that has been expanding, and Roxborough is one such community that is benefiting from the island's sustainable community growth plans. To tell us more, I invite the Honorable Ansel Dennis, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, to give remarks. Let's welcome him.
Thank you very much. Of course, let me recognize the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister, and the Member of Parliament for Tobago East, Mrs. Ayanna Webster Roy, Deputy Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Joel Jack, the hardworking Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestin, my other colleagues in the Executive Council, Secretaries and Assistant Secretaries of the Tobago House of Assembly, Chief Administrator, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Koruma, Administrator in the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Mrs. Sherilyn Solomon, Director of UDICOT, and of course UDICOT Chairman Mr. Noel Garcia, other members of the UDICOT Board and the staff members, TRHE Chairman Ms. Ingrid Melville, and other members of the TRHE Board and members of staff of the Tobago Regional Health Authority, other distinguished guests, of course senior executives of the China Railway Construction Company in the Caribbean, members of this distinguished community of Roxborough, members of the Tobago East community, fellow Tobagonians, members of the media. It is a pleasure for me to be here this evening as the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, and I want to take the opportunity to welcome all of you to our $250 million Roxborough community. And I want to put that in context, because of course, if you were to carefully evaluate the history of Tobago East, once upon a time, a few years ago, the argument could have been made that Tobago East was somewhat underdeveloped. And of course, if you go back to just about 2010, when the People's Partnership was closing off their term of office, there were in fact plans to accelerate the development of Tobago in partnership with the central government. And of course, at the end of the term of the People's National Movement, then under Patrick Manning, we saw where the People's Partnership government made a decision to shelve a number of projects that were critical to the people of Tobago, and that was at the beginning of their term in 2010. But some 5 years after that, the government of Trinidad and Tobago was elected again under the leadership of a Tobago-born Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. And over the last 5 years, in a very short period, and some $250 million later, I think all of us can stand here today with the assurance that the argument could never be made again that Tobago East is underdeveloped. As a matter of fact, I want to suggest that the rate of development that we have seen in Tobago East over the last 5 years is beyond the rate of development in any other part of not just Tobago, but the country. And therefore, I want to say thanks. Thanks to the Prime Minister. Thanks to, of course, the Member of Parliament for both Tobago East and West, Mrs. Ayanna Webster Roy, and Shamfa Koju, for continuously making the case on behalf of the people of Tobago in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore it was due to the commitment of this central government and through partnership with the Tobago House of Assembly that we have seen this kind of transformation over the last 5 years. And of course, not so long ago, we opened the police station right next door at a cost of some $70 million. After that, it was the Roxborough fire station at approximately $30 million. Before that, we had the Roxborough Administrative Complex. Of course, that was a Tobago House of Assembly project at some $30-odd million. In addition to that, just last month, we opened in the Tobago House of Assembly the Micro Enterprise Center at Charlottesville for approximately $27 million. And therefore, when we calculate the kind of money that has been spent by both the Tobago House of Assembly and the central government here in Tobago East, I am saying that this is something that all of us here in Tobago should be proud of, and we also ought to be thankful. And therefore, it is not by chance that this government has committed to this kind of development, because we recognize the importance of Tobago. We recognize the importance of developing Tobago, because Tobago is indeed a part of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, again, I want to put into context the kind of development that has been taking place in Tobago. In not too many days, of course, one of our ferries will be here. My information is that sometime by the end of this week, we should have the APT James arriving in Trinidad. And of course, before it goes to Trinidad, it will be passing here in Tobago. And that is another proud moment for the people of Tobago. And not too long after that, our second ferry, the Boko Reef, that will benefit not only Tobago people, but this country, will be in this country. And again, that signifies the commitment of this government and the Tobago House of Assembly to the development of Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, I am proud as a young Tobagonian, because we are accelerating Tobago's development, which will create numerous opportunities for the people of Tobago. And therefore, in closing, I want to caution the people of Tobago to not only remember the fact that Tobago East was once underdeveloped, to not only be reminded of the fact that this government, a PNM government in Trinidad and a PNM administration here in Tobago, has afforded the kind of development that has never been seen in the history of Tobago. I want us to remember that. And therefore, we must position ourselves to capitalize on all the development opportunities. And I want to mention agriculture before I go, because right down the road, and that is part of the $250 million that I was speaking about, the Tobago House of Assembly, again through UDCOT, we have spent almost $10 million right down in Roxborough to ensure that our farmers in that area and farmers in Tobago East generally have access to that critical resource called water. And therefore, we have started and we expect to complete very soon that irrigation project to ensure that farmers in that area are able to deliver. And therefore, we always talk about the boat and the fact that we must have the best and the fastest ferry. And of course, Tobago deserves that. But I'm saying we must be able to have a situation where when these boats come on stream, we can have Tobago produce leaving Tobago and going to Trinidad in huge quantities. And the current situation where the opposite occurs must in fact be changed. And therefore, I want to caution all of us and encourage all of us as Tobago people that the kind of development taking place presents a number of opportunities for all of us as Tobagonians, especially young Tobagonians. And therefore, we owe it to ourselves to make the necessary adjustments, to adjust our mindsets, to take the necessary initiatives to ensure that all of us as young people, whether farmers, whether other persons in the creative sector, that we are positioning ourselves to take advantage of all the development opportunities. And therefore, today is indeed a good day, not just for Tobago, but for the entire country. Because here we are seeing for the first time in Tobago East, a hospital facility that can rival any other hospital facility in the country. Of course, it might be small in size at only 24 beds, but I'm saying the quality of care that will be delivered because of the equipment that we have here and because of the kind of staff and the kind of processes that we will put in place at this facility, I think all of us ought to be proud of this occasion. And therefore, I will hope that going forward, this facility will be managed in such a way that it will bring much benefit and relief to the people not just of Roxborough, but of Tobago East. And of course, while we build hospitals, the hope is always that persons will remain healthy. And therefore, I want to encourage all of us to continue to live healthy lives, to do all that is necessary to ensure that we remain healthy individuals, especially those in Tobago East who have access to good soils and good farmlands and therefore good Tobago blue food. So let us ensure that we minimize the visits to this hospital, maybe with the exception of the maternity wards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief Secretary. For this new year, the maternity ward, he says. Ladies and gentlemen, it is quite well known that Tobago has a very rich cultural heritage and Tobagonians possess an abundance of talent. Roxborough is also known for its contributions towards our cultural tapestry. And so we could not have an official opening here and not have some Roxborough talent. So join me in welcoming to the stage to perform members of the Roxborough Youth Choir to entertain us. Let's welcome them.
Peace in Christ when we learn of Him. Feel the love He felt for us when He bore sin. Listen to His word, let them come alive. If we know Him as He is, there is peace in Christ. He gives us hope. God, He gives us strength when we can't go on. He gives us shelter in the storms of life. When there's no peace on earth, there is peace in Christ. Streets of Galilee to Jerusalem, mend a broken heart, dry the tear-filled eyes. If we live the way He lived, there is peace in Christ. He gives us hope when hope is gone. He gives us strength when we can't go on. He gives us shelter in the storms of life. no peace on earth. There is peace in Christ. In the storms of life, and there's no peace on earth. There is peace in Christ, and there's no peace on earth. There is peace in Christ. There is peace in Christ.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's encourage them. Let's encourage them. Wonderful talent from the village of Roxborough. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you stand as I invite Dr. Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, to deliver the feature address.
Thank you very much, Our Lady of Ceremonies here in Roxborough this cool afternoon. Permit me to acknowledge the presence of the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Ansel Dennis. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of my cabinet colleague, Member of Parliament for Tobago East and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Ayanna Webster-Roy, Mr. Joel Jacques, our Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance, Mrs. Tracy Davison-Celestine, responsible for health, wellness, and family development, other secretaries and assistant secretaries of the Executive of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Koroma, Chief Administrator of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mrs. Ingrid Melville, Chairman of the Tobago Regional Health Authority, and other members of that authority, her support group, including Dr. Wheeler, who I see here with us this afternoon, executives of that authority, Mr. Noel Garcia, Chairman of UDICOT, which is easily the government's premier executing agency on a number of development projects representing a large chunk of the country's development program. The executive members of UDICOT supporting Mr. Garcia's effort, the contractors' representative, Mr. Yunfei Zhang and Mr. Wanji Zhang of China Railway Construction Limited, the contractors who won the bid on this site, President of the Roxborough Village Council, specially invited guests, members of the media, members of the national audience following us on the various platforms, ladies and gentlemen, children. Today, I am particularly honored to have been invited to take part in this ceremony, to join my colleagues at the Tobago House of Assembly, and on behalf of the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, to deliver one of the feature projects spectacularly completed in Roxborough, the furthest point of our country into the Atlantic Ocean. It must be the ocean breeze. It must be the food. must be the people, but something went very well here in Roxborough. I haven't got all the details as yet, but I've got a good feeling that things went well here. Because when we came here, I think it was July 2018, 19, a year and a half ago, and broke ground for this facility. At the time, I must say, we were encouraged by those in office, and we had some change in office since then. Mrs. Davidson Celestin came in, but the foundation was encouraged and built by Dr. Agatha Carrington's team, and I want to acknowledge her and thank her and her team for agreeing then that this could have been done in the way that we have done it. This facility has been built in 18 months. I think what it demonstrates to us is that we have the capacity to do better. One could point to a number of projects around this country that have lasted so long that people took a long leave on the project and came back and it was still going off. But this project was approached in a particular way. There was a change of design very early, and Mrs. Carrington will agree with that. There was a bit of a change of design. There was a change of scope, because we wanted the people of Roxborough and Tobago East, from Bloody Bay all the way down to Pembroke, to have the best that the country could have offered. So we made the adjustments, and we set out to build this hospital. I must tell you that while I was optimistic, I had a little bit of doubt that it could have been done in the way that it was said it could have been done, but we said, let's set up it. Like today, I was reading one of the newspapers, and in an editorial, the writer cautioned the government that in this period of difficulty that we are still in, that the government should be cautious about being optimistic. And I thought that was good caution. But I took it in the context that what is the opposite of optimism? The opposite is being negative. And if you fall into a river, accidentally you're being pushed into a raging river, you have to be optimistic. If you think that you're going to get out, or if you want to get out, you might even try to swim in a swift current. You might drink a lot of muddy water. But that optimism has to be there even if your chances don't look very good. Because if you're in this swirling river that you end up in, my fault, your fault, anybody's fault, but you're in there, and your approach is the negative approach without that optimism that you could swim out or you could get out alive, what is going to happen to you? You drown before you're dead. So there are certain circumstances where even though the path is difficult, the road is tough, the gradient is steep, the only thing that could get you there in the end, if there's a future for you, is optimism. And that is what I hold out to this country, Trinidad and Tobago. We have come from very far as a nation. There were people who didn't believe that we could even manage our own affairs as an independent nation, and that we needed to be colonials to be guided by the British, otherwise we'd make a mess of ourselves. In fact, some people actually believe that we've done so. But fair assessment of us as a people, as a nation, would show that we have not done too badly, and that enthusiasm, that optimism has worked for us. At the family level, you know, I know, many families where things are not good or had not been good for one generation or more. And it didn't look as if that family or its members could have risen to heights beyond, whether it was poverty, whether it was educational attainment, whether it was a growth of assets and so on. But somebody or some people in that family had that optimism that we could do better. and they set about to walk that difficult course, even though the outcome did not look as successful in some people's eyes. And eventually, a lot of brilliant surprises came out of that, surprising even those who had embarked upon it. And today, I want to say to my people all over Trinidad and Tobago, especially here in Tobago East, that optimism is an ingredient for a guaranteed future. When I became Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago in September 2015, I met a country that was committed and a country that remained committed to giving health care to the population a high priority. At that time, in that policy of the nation, a hospital was almost under completion. The hospital in Couva. That was the latest addition to our physical infrastructure. The Couva Hospital was completed in the following July, and we took delivery of it in July of 2016, notwithstanding what you might have seen during the election before. But the contractor completed the job of that last hospital in 2016. On the drawing boards and on the program of the nation, with that objective of ensuring that health care was our highest priority. Education and health care were too, of course, rivaled by national security. But on a long-term basis, health care, for all the good reasons. But to do that for all the people, we had to bring that vision to the extremities of the country. Point 14, they were clamoring for a hospital. That was on the program. Sangre Grande, they were operating out of containers, part of the hospital. One of the most populous areas in the country, Diego Martin, which doesn't have a hospital, but feeds off the Western Port of Spain infrastructure. They had issues there as well. And that policy, that national policy, where even though that period, 2015, 2016 going forward, was not a very strong one for us financially, economically, it still is a difficult period, but we kept that policy going. Because you postpone it to which day, to which year, to which time. So we bit the bullet and we kept the policy and the programs going. So during the first term of this government, I could tell you, as Prime Minister with my colleagues, we had the opportunity to start and complete and receive the completed Point 14 hospital. So in the Southwestern Peninsula, finally, there is a modern Point 14 hospital, leaving the old one, going to the new one. Then we also commenced and completed and took delivery of the Arima Hospital, brand new hospital. We completed and took delivery of the modern Diego Martin Health Center, probably the best health center in the country. And we initiated construction of the Sangre Grande Hospital and the Roxborough Hospital. Sangre Grande is still under construction, and today we are taking delivery of the Roxborough Hospital. And you might say, there's something fortuitous about this. How come all of this just happened to have been happening at a time that received COVID-19 and the pandemic of 2020? Isn't that pure coincidence? Or is it that somebody's looking out for us, even though we're not looking out for ourselves? All of this effort in this period, 2014 to 2020, culminated with the arrival in January 2020 of COVID-19 in the West and in Trinidad and Tobago in March. And what happened? The brand new Couva Hospital that was just being utilized at the time, being phased in, being used for the technical investigative arm. There was no in-house patient there yet. We designated that. as the center, the central pillar of our parallel healthcare system. Because those of you who have been listening to the news and following the news, we did something in this country which others did not do. As a matter of fact, as I was coming out here this afternoon, I saw some news from an area in the world that I'm very familiar with, where I have family, have lots of friends, and for the last 40 years I spent a lot of time. So I know the place, California. You know what the instruction is in California today? The general instruction to the health people? The ambulance drivers have been told today, don't bring anybody to the hospital who you think wouldn't make it. When the ambulance drivers go, if that team on the ambulance is of the view that the patient doesn't have a good chance of making it, don't pick them up. Because the health system is overflowing with patients. And the reports are that the system is on the verge of collapse. And that is what we try to avoid in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, how do you do that? We created what we, through our technical people's guidance and respect for the science, said to us that the best thing that we could do is to have a parallel system to deal with whatever COVID brings to us, leaving the rest of the health system in as normal an arrangement as possible to provide as normal as healthcare as possible. Well, it wouldn't be normal, because it's taking a strain from that. We didn't create a new set of doctors or a new set of nurses for the parallel system. We had the parallel system, but we had to share the personnel in particular. But we did have, fortunately, the physical infrastructure to allow us to run this parallel system and cover for those persons who got ill and required hospitalization, having been tested positive for COVID. They were hospitalized at the Couva Hospital, which was ready enough to be made that pillar. And then, of course, in the event that things went worse, or even a worse case, we had all kinds of plans to use the old Point 14 hospital, even the new Point 14 hospital. We were using the Arima hospital for a certain category of COVID response. And of course, in Tobago, you use the old hospital here for some part of your response. So fortunately, Trinidad and Tobago had it within its borders, infrastructure that could have been used to allow us to do that. And that put us in a situation to manage our infections through a rigorous quarantine system, state-sponsored quarantine. And later on, we added, for those who wanted to pay for more comfortable arrangements, state-supervised quarantine in few designated hotels. And then as we fought this demon and were in a little bit better position than others were, we now allowing persons to do a part of your quarantine in the state-sponsored arrangements, and then hopefully you're responsible and you go home and you do the rest at home. That is Trinidad and Tobago's position. And that is how we have been able to be where we are even in this building today. Look at the instructions coming out of the UK yesterday, entering their third lockdown. I told you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the people that we're responsible for, that we got into serious debt trying to fund that hard lockdown in April. Cost us a lot of money. But to have not done that would have been to experience the collapse of the economy and certain social unrest in Trinidad and Tobago. Because to be told one morning by the government, there's no job to go to, there's no money coming in at the end of the week, there's no food for your family, and told that across the board, what would Trinidad and Tobago's position have been? We paid our way out of that, and those bills are still to be paid, but we are still alive. And we have a health system that is still very much like how we fashioned it in April, having not been overwhelmed. There were times we came very close to seeing things going pear-shaped. We backed away from it. And I'm waiting patiently to hear what effect might have been the outcome of the folly of no man's land in Tobago last weekend, where there were people who believed that the laws and the rules and the regulations don't apply to them, and COVID mean nothing to them, and they're prepared to risk all that we have invested, all that we have done, for a moment of fun and frolic. But we have those amongst us too. Let us just hope and pray that we did not get an outcome like others have had for an event like that. We will have to continue fighting this virus. I made a comment in my New Year address that the worst is behind us. And that seems to have not found favor with some people, because that optimism is what disturbs some people. Maybe it's better if I say that, well, hell is in front of us. But the reason why I made that comment is because it's a fact. When we look at the virus and the effect it's having on human beings, from January last year until there was an announcement from the producers that they did in fact test and got good results from a vaccine, we were in a position having no idea what our other response would be, other than the washing your hands, coughing in your elbow, and separations. In terms of the biology of fighting the virus in the human body, until that vaccine was confirmed to have some efficacy on the microbe, we were literally just going down an endless road. But the end of the pathway is now in sight as the human population vaccinates itself at a high level, making it difficult for the virus to propagate itself within human beings. Of course, there's a hurdle before that, where you try and avoid getting yourself infected. You still have to do the things that we are doing now to prevent the virus from getting to you. But if you are vaccinated and the virus does get to you, then your body will be in a position to respond, having been introduced to the virus biology by what you have introduced in the vaccine. So we are now in a better position to say that this could be overcome in some reasonable time frame. It wouldn't be 2 months, it might even be 6 months, it might be until the end of the year. But we are going in the correct direction, where we're saying with vaccines, and now what, we have 2 or 3 that are already approved, and as we go along, other companies and other laboratories could, or more than likely, will generate additional vaccines, and the volume available to the country and the world would be greater. And of course, we know there are some people who would not have it because they have other ideas, and we believe that the vast majority of people will get themselves vaccinated, and with that population, that concentration of vaccinated people, it would make it more and more difficult for the virus to propagate itself. That's what we are. So we are here today in Roxborough taking delivery of a brand new small hospital in a pandemic. And that came out of the optimism that we could build this hospital in a period of economic difficulty, because that's when this hospital was built. That's when Arima was built. That's when Point 14 was built. That's when Sangre Grande is being built. And the point that I want to make there is that you don't have to be in a perfect state, in a perfect place, to aim at perfection. There's a slogan from a famous product, which I won't advertise, but the slogan is one that I try to copy all the time. Just do it. If it needs to be done, if it has to be done, just do it. Sometimes it takes an extra effort, even an extra cost. And it is that approach that caused us to say that one of the most attractive places in Trinidad and Tobago, for all kinds of reasons, is Tobago East. Population density is low, air quality is great, seawater quality is pristine Atlantic. We have some of the best reefs, some of the best fishing, some of the best sites, and some of the best people in the country. And if that is so, then the country ought to know that. And if Tobago East is that good, then Tobago West can't be that far behind. So Tobago is good for Trinidad and Tobago, with tremendous potential for Trinidad and Tobago. And the investment that the Chief Secretary mentioned in dollars and cents there is not because we like to spend money. It's because, as Mr. Siaga said to the Jamaicans, if you want a care, that's good, but it takes cash to care. You've got to spend money to do things. Because without the money, whether it is money in your savings account or money you borrow, you use that resource. And the key to it is not what you spend, is what you do with it. It's what you do with it. And as leader of this government, and as a fellow Tobagonian, I make no apologies to anybody for the government's prioritization of the development of Tobago, all of Tobago. Because I am confident that a better developed Tobago is a stronger Trinidad and Tobago. And that Tobago has far more to contribute to Trinidad and Tobago once it is given the opportunity to make that contribution. And these infrastructural developments are about that. But Tobago East, I know there are people out here who would complain. Because as I say, there are some people, if Angel Gabriel come down here, they have a problem with the wings. You had your secondary school right here on this street. In recent times, it was upgraded. Because we always give priority to our future, our children, their future in education. Then you had, in recent years, your administrative complex, your new gas station, your new police station, your new fire station, today your new hospital. You didn't get all at the same time. Your development program had been going on. It has been accelerated by this government, and we are far better off today than we were 5 or 10 years ago. As far as Tobago is concerned and its economic development, another major project that has only just commenced is the airport terminal building. You know and I know the terminal that we have there now. When a large jet comes into Tobago and you're boarding that plane, you line up outside and you walk up the steps. You go down there. It's completely unacceptable in today's international air travel. We committed to building a proper terminus in Tobago. For those of you who have a problem with what we're going to build there, go have a look at what was built in St. Vincent with Trinidad and Tobago's help. And ask yourself, how could we have helped others to build that and have this in Tobago? As a matter of fact, some of the airlines have said to the Tobago authorities that if we don't upgrade that airport, they will not be using it again in India. But in the meantime, in comes COVID, and COVID shuts the world tourism down. Not our tourism, not Caribbean tourism, you know. The world tourism business has been shut down in 2020. And as we move into 2021, when last anybody here went on a cruise? When last you see an advertisement for a cruise ship? When last any of you went on an international flight anywhere? Because the world has been shut down touristically. But it's not going to remain like that forever. When this period is over, the human beings will want to begin to travel again. And the best time to build a fire station is when there is no fire. So we are now preparing Tobago in difficult economic circumstances, but we are preparing Tobago for that time when tourism once again becomes an attractive pastime for those who used to come to us and those who will come to us in the future. So we are preparing for a future. That is why I am optimistic, because we have a future, because the world has a future, and Tobago has a future as part of that world. So we would be building that new terminal building during this period of downtime. Because of how we conducted ourselves and managed our business, our Minister of Finance was able to raise the money from the CAF to build that facility. It's going to bring jobs to Tobago. I hope some small contractors will get work. When I was on this hospital visiting during the construction, I met a young man diligently doing his work, and I spoke to him. I said, where did you learn your skills? And he said to me, I'm in training. He was an electrician who was being trained on this building. I trust that somewhere he is here in Tobago as a trained electrician to become one of our primary electricians, having learnt it on this building. Our skilled workers, our unskilled workers, our materials will go into building those buildings. And at the end of the day, we wait in hope and great optimism that tourism will return, because it's an area of great strength. You would have heard today about the hyperbaric unit. That is a very important attraction for people who go diving. Eastern Tobago allows access to the Atlantic like nowhere else in the country. And we can now promote Eastern Tobago as a dive center, where we have the world famous largest brain coral out there waiting to be seen by those who want to lay eyes on it. Deep sea fishing is a major attraction. And as we build a port in Toko, Tobago and Toko could use this eastern part of our patrimony, our seas around us, to generate business which people only think about today. But you have to be optimistic that it can be done. The same way we were optimistic in the Ministry of Health that we could build a parallel health system that could take our infected people and people who were exposed to infection and manage them away from our health system. And I think we're doing well. But we usually don't get all the support that we can get. The other day I saw a criticism of the Ministry of Health under the heading of the collapse of the health system, written by a gentleman who was tested COVID positive and walked all around Port of Spain after he was tested positive, trying to end up in a situation where he could avoid the quarantine. But he wrote an article in the papers about health system collapse. Today, from here in Roxborough, I want once again for the umpteenth time to thank and congratulate all our healthcare givers throughout the health system of Trinidad and Tobago, ably led by the Chief Medical Officer and the Minister of Health. And while as Prime Minister, I chair the effort and I take responsibility for the decisions, I told this country before that I've seen this before and I've known this before, and I know that the thing to do as government, as Prime Minister, is to follow the dictates of the science. That is what Trinidad and Tobago has done. If we succeed, it is because we have done that. And if we fail, it might be that we didn't do it well enough. But so far, so good. We had invested heavily in human capital, training people, many of whom were on the back burner in the health ministry, in the health delivery system. But come the pandemic of 2020, that body of our specialists in the Ministry of Health came to the fore and provided us with the guidance to a government that was prepared to accept the advice and the dictates of the science. That optimism is something that is worth a lot to us, because had we not been optimistic, we could easily have taken the position that all fall down and we wouldn't know what to do. We of Trinidad and Tobago, we will continue to fight with our economy. We will continue to fight the criminals in our midst. We will continue to protect our children and try and get them back to school. And we'll continue to try to pay public servants who work when the month comes with the expectation that at the end of the month they will get a paycheck from a treasury that is under tremendous strain. We have our priorities right. And as for those who have suddenly appointed themselves guardians of the nation's procurement policies, I will engage them later at a different time in a different place so we can compare notes as to who are the defenders of procurement in this country. You see, it is easy when things go well. When things don't go well, they behave as though all are we is one. Well, we're not one. We are not one. We're different. Tobago East accept with gratitude today from the rest of Trinidad and Tobago this brilliant facility. It will save lives. Many a mother will get here before she gets to Signal Hill. Many a person close to death, coming from Bloody Bay, coming from Speyside, coming from Campbellton, will get here long before they will get to Signal Hill. It will save lives. And a life saved could be a nation saved. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure for me to have been here with Agatha Carrington and that team, and to be here with Tracy Davison and this team, with Ansel Dennis, Joel Jack, and the Tobago House of Assembly, to deliver to the people of Eastern Tobago one of the finest health facilities in the Caribbean. I thank you for your patience, and I thank you for working with us.
Will result in a better Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have your seats. And with an optimistic outlook, I draw your attention to the screens on either side of the podium as a brief video about the spanking new Roxborough Hospital will now be played.
The Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, UDCOT, is pleased to open the spanking new Roxborough Hospital in our sister isle, Tobago. The people in East Tobago and surrounding environs can now breathe a sigh of relief as they no longer have to travel to Scarborough for state-of-the-art healthcare. Located on the Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, UDCOT, is pleased to open the spanking new Roxborough Hospital in our sister isle, Tobago. The people in East Tobago and surrounding environs can now breathe a sigh of relief as they no longer have to travel to Scarborough for state-of-the-art healthcare. Located on Bloody Bay Road, Roxborough, this 27 square feet modern facility was completed by the China Railway Construction Caribbean Company Limited and was mandated for completion by the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development under the Tobago House of Assembly. The hospital has a 21-bed capacity shared between maternity, labor, pediatric and ICU. Additionally, with the threat of COVID-19 still being a reality, the Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, UDCOT, is pleased to open the spanking new Roxborough Hospital in our sister isle, Tobago. The people in East Tobago and surrounding environs can now breathe a sigh of relief as they no longer have to travel to Scarborough for state-of-the-art healthcare. Located on Bloody Bay Road, Roxborough, this 27 square feet modern facility was completed by the China Railway Construction Caribbean Company Limited and was mandated for completion by the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development under the Tobago House of Assembly. The hospital has a 21-bed capacity shared between maternity, labor, pediatric and ICU. Additionally, with the threat of COVID-19 still being a reality, a strong emphasis was placed on equipping the Roxborough Hospital with an isolation room to treat with special case patients. Services for the new Roxborough Hospital include basic healthcare services such as wound care and doctor consultation, general walk-in outpatient services, general dental and surgery services, imaging services such as X-ray and CT scan, allied health support services such as phlebotomy, HIV testing, point-of-care testing, social welfare services, and a hyperbaric unit. A particularly exciting addition to this facility is the wellness area, which features a healing garden. The minimal but impactful landscaping of the building has a chic finish, making it aesthetically pleasing to the eye. The hospital also features a helipad to facilitate helicopter and other powered lift aircrafts for ease of access to emergency services at the hospital. With its predominantly blue exterior, this world-class structure adds significant value to the Roxborough landscape. Residents of Roxborough and its environs can rest assured that the Tobago House of Assembly is working assiduously in the fight against this global pandemic and in providing an effective healthcare system for the island of Tobago. UDICOT proudly presents your new Roxborough Hospital, yet another signature project delivered.
Good day, my name is Ryan Melville, Project Manager for the new Roxborough Hospital project, and it is indeed my pleasure to be able to deliver this project to the people of Roxborough and environment as well as Tobago. As Project Manager, we would have had the opportunity to work along with the contractor, China Railway Construction, and to ensure that we had a lot of local content from the foundation to the finish. This project is indeed a milestone project for the entire populace of Tobago, because this ensures that lives are saved and we have a limit of redundancy when it comes to the services being offered, similar to the Scarborough General Hospital as well as the other hospitals throughout Trinidad and Tobago.
UDICOT, signed, sealed, delivered.
And on this high note, this brings us to the end of our event today. But before we proceed to the cutting of the ribbon and unveiling of the plaque, I wish to offer sincerest thanks to all who made this day possible, including the Office of the Chief Secretary, the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, the Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago, UDICOT, and you, our audience and viewers, for being part of this significant moment in Roxborough, and I dare say, in the history of Tobago. At this time, I now ask the following delegates to proceed for the cutting of the ribbon, unveiling of the plaque, and tour of the facility. The Honorable Prime Minister, the Chief Secretary, the Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Minister Webster Roy, Chairman of the Tobago Regional Health Authority, and Chairman of UDICOT. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being such a gracious audience, and I wish you a very safe onward journey to your respective destinations. Thank you.
And there we have the ceremonial cutting of the ribbon for the official opening of the Roxborough Hospital. And this is an event that is happening on site at the Bloody Bay Road in Roxborough. Now, we had MP for Tobago East Ayana Webster Roy underlining the fact that timely access to healthcare is critical, even citing personal experience. We're now looking forward to the unveiling of the commemorative stone, which will be done by the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly as well as the Prime Minister. And that was the opening ceremony of the new Roxborough Hospital on site at Bloody Bay Road in Roxborough. And you can tune into TTT, Talk City 91.1 FM, Sweet 100.1 FM, and Next 99.1 FM, and on Facebook at TTT Live Online for all your updates. I'm DK Rostar. Bye for now.